went back and watched that. And what kinds of things do you think we're definitely better and show progress in that department?
Well, I think our overall demeanor, we've got to have that kind of a mindset where we have an attacking mindset where we're not gambling, but we're aggressive and we're playing together. I thought our defense was tied together. We shrunk the floor. We had good rotations. Everybody was covering for each other when there was a mistake or an error made. And we just got to continue to be alert and aware for a 40-minute period.
How do you sustain, I guess, that, and I imagine it's sort of walking a line a little bit between being aggressive, being physical, but not being over-aggressive and making mistakes. How do these guys sort of walk that line and sustain that in your mind?
Well, I think what we're adapting to a lot better is reminders and understanding what it looks like and what we mean when we say we've got to be more aggressive, we've got to have better demeanor. I think sometimes early on you don't always understand it, then you start to see it on film and in the other games that you play, and then you can evaluate it and recognize it. And so now they know what we're talking about when we're talking about having that demeanor.
Are there guys that kind of lead the way with that, like bringing that edge every day? Are there guys you can kind of lean on to kind of make sure that is sustained throughout the rest of the year?
I would say all of them are very capable of it, and I think they're capable of doing it on their own to get the others to do it as well, because we all know what it looks like when it looks that way, and we've got to do it on a daily basis in practice as well so that it continues to carry itself out, and those are the things that we've really been emphasizing.
Why do you think maybe it wasn't there on a regular basis, that kind of aggressive nature,
I don't
especially
think,
on the defensive end?
yeah, I don't think they always know it. I don't think they realize it. I know that when you talk with guys during the game, you could say, you're not being aggressive enough. You've got to have better demeanor, and until they see it on film, then they recognize it a lot better. So I think sometimes, the tape is a really good teaching tool, and it also gets them to understand what it looks like when it's really good and what it looks like when it's not very good.
And what is it that they see on tape? I mean, is it just them maybe not closing out on a guy or letting their shoulder sag at times? Or
I wasn't competing hard enough. My demeanor wasn't very good. The offensive player could recognize that he could attack me and take me, and I've got to have that attack mindset as well. And so those are the things that we really talk about. And I think what you really want to talk about is the attack mindset is there, the going hard and battling is there, the competing is there. You want to be able to talk to them just about technical things where they get their foot in the right spot or their hands are in the right place. And so I think we're building towards that, no question.
I imagine you guys know Mo Evans pretty well from recruiting Colin, but I think he's their leading scorer at 26 last game. Just where's he grown? I mean, just as a sort of total player from what he was in high school.
I would say he's always been a really good player. He probably didn't have the strength and the athletic explosiveness when he was in high school that he has now, which he's obviously built and developed there. I think that he has become not only a high-level scorer, but I think a very, very high-level point guard. I think he's averaging about 4 assists a game, so not only is he scoring the ball, but he's also finding his teammates, and if you overhelp or you make a mistake, he's going to get the ball in the right place, and their team as a whole does that really well. They move the basketball.
When you guys look at some of the analytics, your offense is way up there, number 1 in the country in a number of spots. Defense is a little bit lower, obviously. Do you guys look at sliding scales and say, okay, we want the offense to be here, the defense there? Are there certain parameters you want to get to as far as those numbers are concerned?
Well, the one thing we feel like is we can get a lot better offensively. I know that's what the ranking is, but when we evaluate our team and we watch film, we know that we can cut harder or cut better, or we can read situations better, we could run faster, we could run harder, we could score more in our break. So not only do we look at it, even though it's ranked wherever it is ranked, we're also looking for improvement in that area. But I wouldn't say that. I would say that you want to have great balance. Obviously, I think our offense can get better with certain things that we do offensively, but our offense can get better if we continue to get better defensively, because it allows us to get out and run and attack. And I don't care how good your defense is, when your defense has to get back in transition and it's not organized, you can take full advantage of that, and that's what we want to try to develop and do.
On the steals, are those something you guys actively say, we want to get a certain number per game, or are those more of the result of the increased aggressiveness you're talking about?
I would say that we probably focus more on the deflections than we do the steals, so we're always talking about those numbers, and if you have enough deflections, you're going to generate enough steals, which is also going to allow you to get out and score more points.
Well, I guess what's it going to take for James to maybe be a little more consistent, drawing contact, getting to the line a little more? Is it a matter of technique with him, or is it just kind of maybe being a little bit more mindful mindful of just the need to get there.
Yeah, I think that aggressive mindset, I think as coach talks with him about all the time, getting on the boards, whether it's defensive or offensive boards, you're going to go in there and get fouled. And James is one of those guys, he gets on the offensive boards, he can score around the basket. So it allows him to get some easy points and maybe to get to the free throw line. And it's not necessarily James sizing his man up and trying to drive the ball to get fouled. I don't know that that's necessarily his game. But doing those other things and having that aggressive and more physical mindset, I think, is going to allow him to get to the line more often.
In general, I guess, I mean, it's obviously early, but we are about a quarter of the way through the season now. I think a lot of people expected the rule changes in particular to yield more fouls and more free throws. I don't know about the fouls, but free throws aren't really up. In fact, I think they're a little bit down just across college basketball. Is that surprising to you? I mean, is there something you can attribute that to? Again, just because the rule changes were in part meant to sort of crack down on defensive contact and try to allow for more freedom of movement.
Well, obviously, we've had to adapt and coach it differently in practice. And I would imagine that every coach in the country is talking about playing with your feet, showing your hands, you know, being in the right spots, being at those spots quicker because it's not allowing for the physical type play. So I think that it's being taught better, it's being coached better. And I think it's cleaned the game up a little bit because I think everybody kind of did what they were allowed to do. And then when they blow the whistle on those things, then you've got to adapt and adjust. And you've got to practice that on a daily basis, though. I mean, you'll hear people, I'm sure, in gyms across the country saying, show your hands, get those hands out. You can't have them in there at all. So it's something that we really focus on, and we bring officials into practice, and we want to continue to get better in those areas.
Coach, I got one question for you, so I can get it for 4 Point TV. They've had their best start since being in Division I. They were only down by 3 at Utah at halftime. What challenges does IPFW present to you guys, and what are some of the things that you're going to be needing to look to handle tomorrow night?
Well, when you talk about looking at the numbers, they're an explosive team in starting both halves, and they really get out and they score. And I believe they were up 18-11 at Utah, went on like a 9-0 run, so they can be a very explosive offensive team. And I think a lot of that has to do with the way they move the ball and how well they shoot the ball, especially from 3. I think 47% of their offense is coming from the 3-point line. So you don't want to be caught in long closeouts for all those possessions because they're very good at moving the ball and attacking you and beating you. And I think that it's been really interesting to see the program grow because obviously I was at Ball State when they first got it going at Division I, and Doug Knoll, who did a really good job there getting it up and off the ground, and then Dane Fife, and you know, obviously with Tony Jasic, who ended up going down to Jacksonville, and now John Kaufman. I mean, they've had really good leadership there, and they've continued to develop players, recruit good players, and so I think their program continues to get better and better, and it's probably why they're off to one of their best starts.
Thank you, Coach.